present, I call this meeting to order at 5:37. First order of business is 2 sets of minutes, one from June 13th regular meeting, one from June 27th planning board comp plan workshop. Please review, comment if necessary. Any recommended changes? I'll entertain a motion.
Can we do them both at the same time?
Sure, why not?
Okay. I make a motion to approve the minutes from the June 13th, 2019 Planning Board meeting and the June 27th, 2019 Planning Board Comprehensive Plan Workshop.
Second?
All right, second. All in favor? I need 3 out of 4. We got them. Okay. Denise, will you chase down Phil 3 sometime so he can sign these things?
Certainly.
Mr. Marker.
Just a quick clarification, because you are a body of 7, tonight you'll actually all have to vote in favor of something in order for it to pass.
Thank you for that.
Okay?
My parliamentarian in my back pocket. All right, we have 2 public hearings tonight. They both have to do with similar subjects. The first, I'm sorry? Oh,
We were just adding up who voted.
oh well, we all.
We got them all.
Okay. The first is the site design review hearing for the Caribou Utilities District and Revision Energy. I had to read that twice the other night. For an application for a solar array on River Road. I will open the hearing at 6:39. Anyone?
So, Mr. Chair, we do have representatives from Revision Energy here that could present the project to us.
Hi, Brian Byrne, Revision Energy. We are hoping to install a 964 kilowatt photovoltaic system for the Caribou Utilities District, located on 300 River Road. And that's the packet. We also hung a larger poster up there. It's on top of the field across from the plant. Would love to answer any questions.
What kind of a visible profile do we have from the street?
You're not going to see it. It's over. It's well. I think it'd be easier. I'm going to show you here. This distance here is 300 feet to this tree line, and so it's on top of the flat. It's a hill, so you won't see it.
Okay, I have to ask this other question because I read about it in the news today. You probably anticipated it. Have you discovered any vernal pools?
No vernal pools, but we've been finding them all over the place, but not here. We went through a phase 1 environmental site analysis through county engineering, and I can make that available to you if you're interested in it. But no, it's a perfect location. It's just grass field. It always has been. No contaminants, no endangered species, no vernal pool.
Just a grassy knoll.
Just a grassy knoll.
Any other members have any questions?
I have a few questions.
Sure.
Where is the site access, from construction, and then you're probably going to have maintenance vehicles coming in and out?
Well, we're hoping
there? What's the...
we're hoping to do minimal impact.
Okay.
So we'll be having a minimal road access to the railroad bed. There's the existing railroad bed, which is hard packed gravel.
Okay.
So all we want to do is allow us to get up to that railroad bed and then hopefully let it grow over, because the field is accessible. We'd rather it go back to stay field,
Okay.
and that way,
Yeah.
we don't disrupt the scenery.
Okay, great.
We hear the neighbors are Very particular.
You gonna have to mow that site to keep the grass down?
Yeah, yeah.
Now, is there any exterior lighting associated with
Any,
your exterior lighting
No.
associated with the project? Okay.
no, no.
Um,
This is going to be a ground mount, so it's a fixed structure.
Yeah.
And it's at a 35-degree angle. It'll be like 3 feet off the ground. The snow will be able to slide off.
okay.
We'll have a perimeter fence around it by code, so that way if anybody does travel up there on a snowmobile or walking, they won't have access
Okay, good.
to the high voltage.
Okay.
This is kind of the same thing that's going on up where Neil Griffiths did one up there by Five Seasons. Is that,
There's a tracker.
okay,
These are ground, they're in a rack system.
okay,
They're different.
Yeah.
They don't
Okay.
have as high profile as
okay.
We did a system for Gary Gagnon on the Van Buren Road on his parents' place. It'll be very, very similar to that. And we've done limestone, yeah, for the water and sewage district. 2/3, it's very similar in size. And that you can see if you go on the Industrial Park Road, it's right there.
Okay.
And you'll see the fence, and we put up high voltage signs, and you can take a look at that. It's impressive.
Another question I have. This is all educational to
Oh, this is
me,
great.
I think most of us. But as far as you know, erosion, sedimentation control, and that being an impervious surface, what is the impact on the surrounding ground? Your
There's
experience.
very, very, very minimal
Okay.
impact. So right now, it's an existing field, it drains as it does.
Yeah.
It'll still maintain that same characteristic, because all we're driving posts every, say, 16, 20 feet, depending on the design. And once those posts are driven, they're just driven straight into the ground, so the footprint's small. Then everything stands off the ground,
Yeah.
and it just stays the same. The only disturbance that we'll be doing is when we dig a trench between the array to bury the electrical. But then we maintain, best practice with that, and we cover it up, reseed it. Limestone is a good example. We went through, raked it all up, put loam seed down, and then loam seed, and then some mulch just to allow it to grow back.
Anything else?
That's good for me. Thanks.
Do we have any comments from the neighbors?
It's a win-win situation, more than win-win, win-win-win-win.
I take it that means you're in favor.
I'm all for it 100%. Yeah, we should be doing more of this all over the country, and hopefully it will be. It's gonna be on a piece of land that the CUD owns, I use the farming. They can't use it for anything else ever, as long as they get water from the
From
aquifer.
that well, yeah.
They bought it for protection. This is the only thing they can really use it for, and it's gonna be of great benefit to them. It may help to stabilize the sewer rates and the water rates over a period of time in Caribou, hopefully. I'm not saying they're gonna get down, but I'm sure it'll probably help. It's a good deal all the way around, it really is.
You're hired.
Well, no. My feelings.
If there are no further comments or questions, I will close this hearing at 9:46. And what I would like to do is to have the other hearing as well, sequential, and we can then move to considering the details of the application after. All right, so I'll open the hearing on at 5:47, on, what's the name of it? It's the one that's gonna be up by the new elderly housing, senior residences. Sam Collins' project on Hilltop. The same engineers are here for that.
So
Yes.
a very similar project. Over the course of the week, I talked to, I think, one resident from the neighborhood, And their concerns weren't so much the actual project, but the associated land. But that's totally removed from this project, so. No other concern that come to my office regarding this project.
No pools?
No vernal pools.
Because that could stop you in your tracks if you didn't know.
Oh, it has.
We made
Yeah.
a
and-
newspaper today.
Yeah, that's why I decided I had to bring it
Camden,
up.
that was,
Yeah.
yeah, that's my project as well.
Oh, goody.
So, not anymore.
So wetlands, vernal pools, endangered species. Move on. Don't even fight it.
This is considerably smaller in scope, but it's not serving as big a group of people. About 270 kilowatt.
Correct.
That's right.
Yep.
It's specifically serving the load of the new senior residents on
Yeah.
the site. So it's a little different in the sense of serving an off-site load for the district versus an actual load on site.
Yeah.
So it's really
When the
great.
sun doesn't shine, you just draw from the grid.
That's right.
Right.
Any questions on this one?
Looks very nice.
Not often we get a twofer.
We actually have a representative from Caribou Senior Housing. If you got anything you would like to add, sir?
It's a big component to that project. As we discussed in previous meetings on the Caribou Senior Living Project, we converted everything there to electric, including the heat.
Yes, I
And this
remember
was a
that.
very important component, obviously, to that. So it's gonna be, the good thing is obviously you produce power, a lot cheaper than you do from purchasing it. Also, you have long-term control over it, so, which is a concern of ours, is being all electric.
Mm.
We can't predict what things are gonna be 20 years from now. So it's a big component, and I'm excited to do it, and hopefully do more of it. To be honest with you.
Well, with my background plus my feelings about the environment, I can only say that I'm very enthusiastic about projects like this for a lot of reasons, carbon footprint not being the least of them. Any further comments on this one? Then this hearing is closed at 5:50. So I guess now we can go back and consider the details on the first application and then move to the second one, assuming we succeed on the first one.
Just a point of clarification, is this a concept review or a final review?
That's a good question. I never even considered
It
that.
never really ever says. I'm assuming it's a concept. Plan review.
It's got all the questionnaires for the final. Mr. Marker.
The site review process gives the developers the option of bringing it to you as a concept or as a final application. And so I believe with the details you've been given, you can treat it as a final review tonight.
That's what I thought. At least one had come before us once before, if you want to call that the concept review. So. All right then. Does anyone have any questions about the paperwork that's been submitted? There's a number of not applicables in this situation because there's no structure involved. Which is, makes our job a little easier.
So if it's a final review, all of those items on page 4 should have been included with the package, right?
Page 4, 3, 4.
Is that the electrical components?
Now, there's item 7, plans to show the following elements for review. We can waive any of those, by the way, that we wish to, just in case you wonder. This is the one that needs to show us, if we care to see it, graphic scale and north arrow.
Oh, I've brought the 2x3 that has the north arrow and
Okay.
the property boundaries for the lot. And
Location of any existing proposed easements, I don't believe that's,
And the 11 by 17 should also have the property boundary and the north arrows.
yeah, I see the, yes, they're there. Registration number of the architect. We don't have an architect on this.
We have a stamped engineer.
Okay. That I don't see.
That should be on the right-hand side. Oh, where are we? Oh, that's on, that should be, how about this? I'll give you this. This is the full construction set.
Oh, okay, there's more.
Sure.
There we go.
That has all the electrical
There's your
components.
stamped engineer right there. Okay, item E, size, shape, and location of existing proposed buildings not applicable. Emergency vehicle access not applicable. We know the location and names of streets within 200 feet. It's River Road. There are no finished grades, it's natural. Conceptual treatment.
Which one are you doing first?
I'm actually just going through the checklist on the plans. On package page 10.
That would have been the Caribou
Which
Utilities
is the
District.
Caribou Utilities one, and that's the first one, so,
Right.
okay.
Stormwater management is not an issue. Sewer and water is not an issue. Landscape buffering is not an issue. No signage. There'll be fences around the high voltage hut, or whatever you want to call it, of course. And there aren't going to be any street sidewalk intersections, etc. So, does that satisfy the board? Okay. Given that, boy, it's August already. Conformance with the comprehensive plan, is that a yes or a no or not applicable?
That's a yes.
I say yes.
I agree. Traffic issues, yes, no, not applicable.
I think during the construction, there'll be some disturbance in traffic there, but over the long term, I don't see the traffic would be
there's
impacted at all.
always that issue.
How
during
often do you
construction.
expect to have to be on site doing maintenance or checking on it?
Once a year.
Just build it and just let it go.
The only moving parts are electrons,
Right.
and we can monitor. We will be monitoring it remotely, and usually, if there's any issue, it's something that can be fixed with a firmware upgrade remotely. And we just perform an annual inspection.
Okay.
Typically during the first year, there are more visits as we kind of tweak the.
Oh, yeah, you've got to
system.
fine tune it, yeah, sure.
So that first year, you'll see more activity, but even then, it's
But it's a pickup
every
truck.
couple of weeks, and not,
Okay, on the truck.
Right.
yeah, it's a
Right.
pickup truck.
And we'll be having the material delivered. We won't block the road. We can pull into the utility district's horseshoe, have it, and then transport all the material up on the site so it's not on the River Road.
This is just a side question, just occurred to me, how long do you figure, once you start, how long does it take to put that in?
Well, that depends on the weather, but we want to finish by in 2019. So it takes a while, but we're going to do as fast as we can before the snow comes. We wouldn't be able to start until mid-September anyway, until we get approval.
Back to the checklist. Are we good on traffic?
Yes.
Site access?
Good.
Overlay, right? Parking and vehicle circulation. I think that's an NA.
Yeah.
The same with pedestrian circulation, in my opinion. Site conditions are okay. Open space implications, well, we're not changing anything on the ground. Sanitary sewage is NA, water is NA, emergency vehicle access is NA. No waste disposal, no buffering.
There's
Well, to buffering that's there by distance, yeah.
Maybe just to come back to the emergency vehicle access point, where you do have electric stuff up there and you're in a grass field, we'll want to maybe take a look at making sure the fire apparatuses can get up into that area. So it may not, we may have to look at the access road as something more than just
Well,
going across the ground.
the premise I'm working on, Mr. Marker, is that if they can get up there with their panel truck, an ambulance can get up there too.
I'm not so concerned about the ambulance lane, about a fully loaded fire truck trying to come across a muddy field.
If I was a fire truck, I wouldn't be putting water or anything that was going on up there.
That's, again, and one of the things we probably need to look at and have Chief Susi take a look at it.
Really? Well, if we should have had Chief Susi look at this, I wish that had come up before now.
I don't know it's going to be a major issue. They may just say they'll fight it from the road, but still, we want to have something from Chief Susi as far as a review from the fire department on that.
I'll reach out to the
We'll
chief.
make that a condition. If, assuming we get to the approval point, we'll make that a condition. I just don't want to hold everything up for no reason, no real reason. Natural areas are not being impacted, in my opinion. Anyone disagree? Exterior lighting is an NA, there will be none. Stormwater management, there will be none. Erosion and sediment control, same thing. There's gonna be one smallish building with a smallish footprint to house the transformers.
Yeah, is that pictured on
Other
here
control
anywhere?
equipment.
The transformer, it won't have a building.
Okay,
It's going to sit on a on a vault. It'll be just like a regular CMP Amera transformer, and that'll be nestled within the array. It's in the. You should see it in one of those plans.
Yeah.
So that'll be in the middle of the solar array,
that's curious, where does the DC to AC conversion take place?
right at that transformer.
Okay, on the same path.
Right. So we have Amera approval to run the primary voltage from the pole underground to that transformer, and then that transformer is going to feed our AC combiner panels, which sends AC. So the inverters, there's going to be one inverter located on each row that takes
Okay.
the DC from that row, converts it to AC, and it's all underground.
So there's not gonna be a big building with controls, that's great.
No, it'll be it'll just be a big green metal cabinet.
Big bulletproof cabinet.
Yep.
Okay, that's good news as far as I'm concerned. So, buildings NA. Landscaping is gonna stay as is. Infrastructure, the only infrastructure is the new line from the street to your transformer
And that'll be underground.
and an internet line. Probably.
No, we'll use
Over the air?
cellular.
Okay. Did you check coverage?
Yeah, we figured it out up in Connor Township and in Limestone. We just needed to configure the antenna to stay on a U.S. tower.
Yes.
So you get a lot of roaming charges, but we
That's a big
figured.
issue up here. Okay. Then I'm suggesting infrastructure is NA. Advertising features, I suggest NA. Design relationship to the site and surrounding properties, I think that's a yes. Scenic vistas is an NA. Utilities, I think, is a yes. Mineral exploration is an NA. And general requirements, I don't, those have to do with mining and mineral runoff and all that. I don't think that's an issue. So in my opinion, correct me if I'm wrong, we could be in the status of being able to approve with the condition that fire chief gets a chance to take a look at it. Everyone agree? Can I have a motion?
So,
Do we need a second? Yeah, we do need a second.
Seconded.
Thank you. I didn't hear you.
I'm
I'm
sorry.
sorry.
I didn't hear him at first.
Oh. All right. Well, it's been moved and seconded,
Okay.
and we need all 4 votes yes for this to pass. Phosphorus export, that's NA. Thank you. All in favor?
Okay. Yes.
It is 4-0. I'm gonna just initial this one for the record, and then we'll sign
Right.
the originals.
I'll contact the chief
After
in
the
the morning
chief
and we'll
talk
go
to-
on a site visit and we'll figure it out.
Okay. Can't spell fire chief. With the rest of the board's permission, we'll move on to the next one, which is Hilltop Senior Residences.
Here, I'd like to present another construction dock set.
Great.
And on the 3rd page shows you the transformer and inverter locations and access.
Here's the engineer's stamp. Computers are wonderful. Okay, here's the old school. And they're just gonna hook into that pad, which is already there. And all underground. Okay, you're gonna put fence over the entire array. Is that true of the other site too?
Yeah, by code, we have to put
Okay.
a perimeter fence around the entire
That's
array. And typically, it's about 15 feet from the panels.
Could you explain again you mentioned it earlier, the type of posts that you're driving to use to mount these units?
This one will be screws. This one will be. So for Caribou, it's going to be driven piles, which is a steel, looks almost like a steel I-beam.
Okay.
We drive that in. This one, we're going to have screws into the ground, and then steel poles into each one of those screws
Got it.
to build the infrastructure on.
Okay, thanks.
How far away does the snowmobile trail need to be from this array?
The snowmobile trail is going to be relocated.
You guys have talked to Gary about that? Remember he
Yes,
said,
yeah.
correct, Brian?
Yeah, that was all pre-conception planned.
What's the code as far as how far a snowmobile trail or any sort of public access way needs to be away from these arrays?
I would have to research that. I'm not aware of that.
I'm not aware that that would be an issue. You've got a perimeter fence.
True.
Yeah, I don't. I
But you
think.
have snowmobiles going around the current, turn and maybe misguiding and running into the fence or through the fence or something.
Yeah.
I think it's a goal, speaking with Gary,
Yeah.
that it's gonna be totally changed, totally
So
new road.
he's
It
gonna
won't even
change
be
it.
close to the sort
Good,
of.
okay. That's all I had on that.
Okay, Tom, that's fine. Is everyone good with the first checklist, which is the submission checklist. It's very, very similar, if not identical to the last one.
Yes. Looks good.
It's not, you have a note on this, what you gave us here, existing playground is gonna be removed. I don't see where that is on the existing drawing. Note number 2, the existing playground areas and fencing around them are to be removed. Where is that?
So there's a playground, but that was already, really has nothing to do with the solar array. But right here is a playground. That was already a plan in the
Oh.
city.
Way over there.
Where the
Yeah.
school transferred it.
There's a street here.
We're keeping the playground equipment, and the rec department's gonna remove it. Right off, so.
Yeah,
These are baseball fields, though, here? The two baseball
Yeah.
fields? But the playground is right here, right in front of the school. But that's
So-
being discontinued.
So, yeah, I guess that brings us to another point, because Gary's got another field that he just built back there. That,
this array,
a good home run hit might.
Wow, we talked about that.
I don't think that note is
Yeah.
I think that was just a
He'd have to-
mistake maybe by the engineer,
I mean, it is a long way back.
who's
there,
just
but-
adding,
Gary
who
did say that
superimposed
at the
several
last, I think it
maps.
was department head meeting, it would take a 300-foot shot
That's
to
neat.
reach where
It'd
the
be
new
2
playground will
baseball.
be.
Okay.
And these panels are pretty robust, believe it or not.
Well, they have to
So,
be,
yeah,
yeah.
they can take pretty heavy hits of hail.
If they can take a hailstorm,
Yeah,
they'll take a
they
little
can
league
take
ball.
a little league baseball shot, so.
I don't think anybody's gonna be hitting it that far.
No.
That'd be a hell.
If he does, he'll
It's like
get
on
called.
the downhill.
Yeah, it is quite a ways, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's gonna be a long way from the street too. Somebody's gonna have to look hard to see that.
I'll be honest with you, so it's been cut.
Yeah, I haven't been up to look.
Originally, we had talked about, because we really didn't want it to be visible just for appearance for the elderly housing, we were gonna put it behind here, keep this line here, but we were worried about shading on it. So that's why we moved it down here, and so this has all been cut as of 2 weeks ago, and surprisingly, it opened it up quite a bit, there's quite a view from here, now that the trees are cut. So, it won't be very visible from the field, but, I mean, when you drive in, obviously.
If you're looking for it, you can see it.
What's that?
I say, if you're gonna look for it, you can see
Yeah,
it. But
it's not gonna be like.
it's like any other neighborhood feature, eventually people just, oh, it's there. There's one down on Route 495 in Massachusetts, just north of the Mass Pike. It is very impressive.
I know it well.
I used to live there. Okay, shall we go down through the checklist? Everyone agree?
Yes.
Yes. All right. Somebody else want to do the work? You want me to do it?
Do such a good job.
Oh. What did we do last time on the first one? Was it a yes or an NA?
It was a yes.
That was a yes.
Yeah, you help me out here. Traffic's an NA, I think.
Yeah.
Site access is a yes.
Yes.
Parking and vehicle circulation, you can put that a yes or an NA.
It's a NA.
All right. No pedestrian circulation. Site conditions are okay. Open space is NA. As is sewage, water. The same emergency vehicle access condition will have to be on this one
Yep.
as well. Otherwise, Mr. Marco would up again. Waste disposal is in a buffering, I say is a yes. Natural areas, well, they've changed them, but it's not detrimental. Exterior lighting, I believe, is NA. Stormwater is NA, erosion is NA, buildings, there are none. Existing landscape, NA, infrastructure, it's all gonna be underground. No advertising features. I think the relationship of the design to the site is acceptable. Scenic Vistas is an NA. Utilities, well, that's the name of the game. No minerals, general requirements are okay, and we will not be exporting phosphorus from this site. Any further questions, comments from the board?
No, thank you.
With the condition of the visit to the fire chief, I would ask for a motion. Mr. Chairman? Yes, sir. Sure.
if I can. So the intent is that this will serve the seniors, or the senior housing. It's not currently on the same site, is that right?
No, the land is actually owned by Carl, who owns a considerable piece of land all through the back. The intent is to essentially build it and then deed off how much we actually needed, have it surveyed and deeded off, and then Caribou Senior Housing will purchase that from Carl.
Could we just ask for a notice of intent to do that? That we could have on file? That would be nice. Good point.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Oh, that peanut.
Yes, this peanut. The way your solar arrays are lined up there, they're going east to west. Do these move?
No.
At all? They stay that way?
The
Is there any chance of glare towards the east side where the York Street is? I used to live up there, and on that hill you can see right towards where you guys are putting it. No, I worry somebody cresting that hill and seeing the glare of these things. I was just curious on how that.
No, I mean, the solar panels are designed to absorb the sunlight. Any glass surface is gonna have glare, but at a 35-degree angle facing south, you're not gonna have any glare. We have sites on major highways, near airports. We've never had an issue.
Yeah, if you think about it, Tom, the sun would have to be higher than 90 degrees for glare to even come close to impinging on the horizon in the other direction.
That's the thing I am thinking about it. That's just how my mind works. You just worry about everything and everything possible, and you have contingency plans. So if it does happen, what are we going to do? I mean, I'm not saying it's going to.
Well, if the sun gets to better than 90 degrees elevation in this part of the planet, we have more serious problem.
Fair enough. However, if you do get glare off it, I just
I-
worry about
well,
traffic
physics-
coming over.
Physics tells me that's not going to happen.
I still need to.
Well, there's really no traffic there, there's no road there.
There's nobody
This
to
is all
see.
trees, this is all
No,
woods.
no, guys, no.
The road's over here.
No.
York Street is further.
York Street.
York Street is north. Any glare, if there was any, would be heading south, not north.
You can barely
You
see
can-
after they cut it, you see a little, it's
You
just
can
a
see a
hair
couple
of
houses there.
But where that is right
That's
there,
it.
every time I crest that hill and used to go into my home, I could see the top of that hill. Every time. But
I guess I'm really confused. York Street is
They're 35
an
degrees.
east-west road that's totally north of that site.
no, it's north. Yeah, it runs north of it, but it also runs out by Irving Farms and out towards Carl's business. It runs all the way around, down up through, and up that one.
Has that ever been an issue in any of your other
No.
projects? Yeah.
No,
It's not the
we've-
nature of that material, really.
You know,
We also have passed strict FAA regulations in terms of being, for glare reports. So, that would be a requirement if we were at an airport, but it is not, the glare requirements are not required as a part of our
Yeah.
process.
And we've passed we have we have multiple sites where we're actually at airports, at the end of the runways, on 95, 295, where that was a legitimate concern for traffic and airplanes, but
It's not.
it wasn't, it was approved then, and
Yep.
this site in particular, I don't ever see
Yep.
that happening.
Okay. I would ask for a motion so that we can vote.
I move we approve with the condition mentioned about the checking out the access by the fire chief.
Okay. Second is received. All in favor? We have 4 votes. Okay. Ken, when you get the conditional business just taken care of, just give me a ring and
I'll contact
I'll-
the chief first thing, and
I'll
I
at
know these
least,
gentlemen are even gonna be in town tomorrow, so.
I'll at least get my signature on them, and then the rest of the board can sign at the next meeting.
Just for clarification, you also mentioned the condition of the letter of intent
Oh, yeah, that's true. Well, this is,
for the
Thank you.
deeding over of the property that this is being built on.
yep.
If, we will be walking the sites tomorrow, if the chief wants to, I don't know, it's probably short notice, but we could bring him to the sites tomorrow.
Yeah, or I could be there and I could in turn
Okay.
show him.
Sure.
Are you available tomorrow to do that?
I'll make myself available.
Great, what time do you want to, are we doing, the utility district at about 7:45?
Yeah, we're gonna meet with Dale Blackstone, so we'll call him in the morning, see when he wants to meet.
7:45, you buying coffee?
We absolutely. What else do you want?
So you'll be with Dale at the CUD site first thing?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And then
We're also
over to,
traveling to Hilltop with Dale also
Well, good.
after that.
I'll see if I can have Chief Susi in tow.
And you can always call me too if he has a different time schedule. We can work with that.
You have the card, or do I have a number? Or
I do.
Okay. Next order of business is new business. Help me out, Ken. What do we need to do here?
Okay, we want to first
Thank you,
touch on-
gentlemen. and
Thank you,
ladies.
guys.
thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Sean.
Appreciate it. Yes, thank you.
Oh, we got some old business. I don't think that is worth being.
I just wanted to touch on old business first, if that's okay, and just to say that we had our signatures on the condominium association declaration plan for Lindley Estates. That's been sent down to the Hall of Records and been properly recorded by the attorney.
No, you can take it.
He wants me to leave. We'll leave.
It's up to you guys.
I can get one.
Thank you.
And so really, that's our first condominium project in the city of Caribou. So it actually got a mention in some press coverage that we had on our
Well, that kind of took me by surprise, actually, because someone on Facebook got all excited about this new condo for people, and it's been there for a few years now.
right. But it's going to be completed, so
Well, yeah,
it's kind of exciting.
maybe.
And I build it as a renaissance of sorts for that area of town.
Sure.
So the new business is the consideration of the CDBG grants. The staff, manager, and myself have been working on securing these CDBG grants, the community development block grants that are going to take place here in the city of Caribou. The first one we'll talk about is the economic development one for Port Air. It's the one that Manager Marker's been working on very closely. And So basically, it's going to allow for some improvements to their building and also some equipment purchases so they can expand the line. So a very good project. We were approved to go into development stage, and we have, I believe, 6 months to develop the project and move forward from there. The second one you'll also find is actually a review for us, because we had a public hearing regarding the Cary CDBG project, which is public service, and that would be the transportation project that we'll do on behalf of Cary. We're applying on behalf of Cary. So in our training this Monday, I was going to touch on that later, but they gave us a long list of to do for this phase 2, so the development stage of the project. Basically, anything's possible as long as you fill out the right form, and there are 10,000 forms. That's what I learned on
Isn't
Tuesday.
that exciting? In the interest of full disclosure, I know there are 2 memos here that I'm being asked to sign as chair. The memos basically state that the planning board is aware of these grant and applications. It's full disclosure on my part, I do consulting work for Corvair. I have nothing to do with this grant application, however. Any,
Would you think that would constitute a conflict at this point? We're just saying that we're aware of the project. So.
yeah.
And it's really, it's one of those check boxes and forms that we need to put our phase 2 development in order.
If they get the money and they get the new equipment, and I'll have to do something about the new equipment in terms of documentation, but that's as close as I'll get to it.
Very good. Anything else you'd like to add, Dennis?
I'm going to sign this.
As far as no communications, I think I can cover that under staff reports. So I'll carry on with that. The notices violations, I actually at one point had 38 open notices of violation. I've gone to the bottom of the deck and I'm sorting through again. We've resolved half a dozen. The big problem is, I guess as usual, is absentee landowners. So we have some blight situations in town, and trying to reach out and get these people responsible for their buildings has been a challenge. However, I've been thinking recently, since this time and all the tax notes went out, that maybe now would be the time as people are paying their taxes on these properties to figure out who that is and who to contact. So
Yeah,
we'll be working
that'll
on
work
that.
as long as somebody doesn't have their accountant write a check.
Well, we have some that are actually tied up in bankruptcy and tied up in the bank's foreclosures, and they're equally as non-responsive as just a regular landowner. So. The most recent one was a complaint actually by a landowner on Limestone Street. They wanted us to post their building as dangerous, which we did, and it is a dangerous building. However, that being said, the notice of violation would have to go to that very same person. I can't track it down. But go figure. We're working on it. Mayor's Committee on Urban Renewal and Blight Removal. So I met with the committee on blight. We had a nice conversation. I was fairly impressed with the committee. Mr. Camping facilitated the meeting very well. The members came prepared. They had done their homework. They had good questions, and they had actually life examples that they could draw from other areas of the state. So I'm looking forward to see what their study and suggestions entail. Bird's eye demolition is 99.9%. We've got one section of the old digester bunker that still needs to come down. But before we can tear that down, we need to remove the effluent that's still stranded in the basin. So now we have Peterson Septic is now pumping that. So 3,000 gallons at a time are traveling over to the Grimes Road to the reed fields, where they'll be slowly introduced into the lagoons for treatment. So that's ongoing. That is the most smelliest and disgusting mess you'd ever come across.
I can imagine.
as an aside. Small communities grants. We're also working with the state on some septic grants from 6 applications that we extended. We've got 3 grants, 1 residential and 2 in commercial. Everybody's in, and we're going out to bid in the next edition of the Aroostook Republican. So that being said, we hopefully we'll have these 3 projects all buttoned up and finished before the snow flies. Mentioned the public service CDBG award, and the chair has signed his name to our letter. We were pretty excited not to get just 1 grant, but actually 2 grants in this grant cycle, so I thought that was worth a mention. The comprehensive plan update progress. Been going around to all our department heads. For instance, Hope at the library. I signed her up to see if she has research volunteers at the library, because I know they're there, that would like to take a look at our history section, because I feel it could be more Caribou-centric. We mentioned a lot about Loring Air Force Base, which is important, I realize. And we mentioned a lot about ancient history and the folks, the First Nations peoples that were here before us. Again, very important, but there's a lot in the middle that I think got left out. So I'd like to see them flesh that out a little bit. I've talked to Jay Cam at Northern Maine Development Commission. He says he's 95% done on the transportation section and about 80% done on the demographics, so I expect to see that soon. He said next week, but I teased him about that, said the check's in the mail too, right? He said, no, really. So, and those were the things that I needed to mention, I think.
It's nice to know that other folks are getting involved and providing input. It's great.
We did go to training on CDBG on Tuesday, and this is worth mentioning. There's a lot to these grants, and they could be for a construction grant of any size, could be pretty all-consuming. So you know, enter into these things lightly. There's a lot.
No, there's a lot of work. Just getting it's just the tip of the iceberg.
That's just the tip of the iceberg. Yeah.
Tom?
Mr. Air.
Have you heard anything from Cary Medical Center on their portion of the comprehensive plan?
Yeah, so as a matter of fact, when I got our acceptance letter, they also forwarded the Phase 2 documents. So basically, there's A through. There's 10 steps, but the 3rd step is like 20 steps long. So I reached out to Bill Flagg over to Cary and said we got to make sure to record our committee, because that has to be designated. We have to get organized, and then we're moving on there with things like environmental statements and the letter from the planning board, council acceptance.
Yeah, I think his question was as far as the general plan itself.
Oh, the overall project.
No, the comprehensive plan update.
Oh,
Is that right, Tom?
Excuse me. No, I have not heard from them regarding the comprehensive plan.
Okay.
Maybe Bill Flagg.
Yeah, we haven't met since we discussed that, so I haven't had a chance to run that by him yet.
When are we planning to finish this?
I'd like to have it done in 2019. So those are my staff report items.
Okay. Next on the agenda is manager marker.
Title 13 stuff.
Yeah.
I don't have a whole lot for you tonight, but let me cast it up on the wall and see if it sticks.
Oh, that's cool. The headline, that video. Did you have those videos this bell?
That's the first thing I noticed. Video.
That's right, from the manufacturer.
Has to be intended.
You want to swap seats there, so you can present to me?
You never know.
Asian origin.
I see some crazy things broadcast on WAGM. So.
Oh, I won't even go there.
Actually, while going through the comp plan today, I looked at the transportation section really quickly, and it still references an active rail line, rail siding.
Hmm.
That's
Yeah, that's gotta come up.
that's somewhat misleading.
5 years ago, it was active.
Maybe we can make it active again in a different way.
In Title 13, there's a very large section that has a lot of miscellaneous regulation in it. And so I just wanted to talk with you tonight, illustrate that a little bit.
By God, he did it.
So right now, we have in the document, we have our site plan information. And we have a section that goes through site plan regulations. And we have a section that goes through subdivision regulations and processes. And we have a general administrative element to it. And then we have this section of the ordinance that is, it's kind of like, we're not sure exactly where to put this, so we're just going to throw it in this section.
Hmm.
And that's where we get where we are today with this. Let's see if I can focus that a little bit better. So each of these lines on the screen represent a different regulation in this one section. So we have, and what I've done, I've colored them and kind of put them into a basket of, this is generally what that regulation would serve to address. So there are some that are just in general nature, like sign regulations. That's generally applicable across all zones, developments, and everything. And you can't read that very well on the screen, but that's what that black square is there. You have some regulations that are very specific to, let's see if I can load that up some more. So some things that are very specific to non-residential uses, like buffers and screening. Things that you would say, okay, if Dunkin' Donuts came to town, we're going to look at the buffer and screening standard. But a subdivision, not necessarily. You're just looking at the lots and the road designs type of things. Okay? Disposal of solid waste. It's more of an issue with, again, the commercial side of things than it is subdivisions, because the residents generally take care of their own solid waste. But there are some of those things that, like archaeological sites, we want that to be applied whenever we see a subdivision or a site design, that they're going to be taking those things into consideration. Easements for natural drainage ways, erosion sediment control, exterior lighting, that would generally apply to, you could say, would be multi-family types of developments as well as non-residential other types of developments, and commercial. Fire protection is one of those things that would go on both sides. Natural beauty, aesthetics, historic sites, water quality. You have some of these that, for instance, lots and density, we have in our zoning ordinance all of our lot regulations.
Right.
And so there is a place for it, but for some reason it got put into this general miscellaneous regulatory section. And so that's something that we can look at, maybe moving things around a little bit. There are others that the title of this section actually is specific regulations. But we could generate some of these, they are unique to themselves and should probably be standing out a little bit. So apartments that are accessory to commercial uses, we probably ought to make some reference to that in the land use table. Right now it's not in the land use table, but there are also, the way it's written right now, there are some very specific parking regulations that would apply. And so that's a specific use. Bed and breakfasts also have a long list of specific regulations for bed and breakfast facilities. We may want to look at that one as far as Airbnbs as well, because sometimes that's probably more the norm now than a bed and breakfast facility. Campgrounds or recreation parks, home occupations, hotels, motels, and inns. In some ways, bed and breakfast falls into that category, but also I'm not sure that there's a lot of difference as far as our development standards go. If we say that this type of use has to have parking, access, and other things, landscaping, buffering, we'll have to look at, is it really necessary to have completely different guidelines for hotels and inns and motels, types of things. There's also things like I would categorize as nuisance regulations. Electromagnetic interference, noise, toxic and noxious discharges, waste material accumulations. Those were the four that we have in here that generally more of a nuisance side of things and would be typically enforced in combination with the police department and code enforcement.
And those can be tough to enforce as well, because noise, you have to measure it scientifically, and you have to measure it over the course of time. And odor, odors are tough, and you gotta have to, what do you call it, odorometer? Light pollution, same way, so many lumens.
Right.
So it's very hard to prove that scientifically.
There are ways of doing it, and there are some regulations are less scientific and still have been found defensible, but these need to be updated to be consistent with some of those. There are some things like rear lots. Again, it's an area of the code that's kind of hidden, but this one piece of regulation says that if somebody has a rear lot, they can put a home on it. Wouldn't have to have any access to a frontage road or anything like that. And so these are some things that we need to clean up, as well as maybe just say we really want that at this point. It's in there now. I don't recommend we keep this one in particular in here.
I don't either, especially if there's no frontage requirement.
temporary dwellings, this would be if somebody's building a home on their property and they want to put a mobile home on there while during construction type of thing. But again, there might be a better place to put that than in this miscellaneous regulations section of code. There are, we have some specific regulations to swimming pools, which really is a building code issue, not necessarily.
That shouldn't be, that doesn't sound like a zoning issue.
Right. So, but in looking at this, so each of these regulations is part of this miscellaneous regulations section of Title 13. So what I would recommend is that we, with some of these, we combine them together into new sections, make it a little bit easier to find. For instance, if it pertains to site designs like that, buffering requirements. So for instance, we would have, for instance, one section of the code that is now a landscaping and lighting section that would just put all of these things into that.
Mm-hmm.
We can look at landscaping requirements and buffering requirements in that one section. And if somebody comes in and say, okay, well, check out that section. These lots and density and rear lots, we'll look at maybe putting that into the subdivision regulations, or again, just revisiting them all together and taking them out.
Make sure we don't allow them by omission.
Right. Create a new section of the code that includes the protection of historic and natural features. So we combine all of these regulations into one new section. So again, we can point people to, this is the section that you need to be careful about. So that would include archaeological sites, easements for natural drainage ways, impact on natural beauty aesthetics, historic sites, wildlife. And some of these, they may be redundant. When you have all these things that just get thrown into the miscellaneous pot over time, sometimes you have that overlap in regulation. But if we put them all into one section, we can see that better.
See redundancies again.
Right. We have one section of the code that right now is access management, off-street parking, loading and road design, and construction standards. That's a lot in one section, and doesn't necessarily all apply to every project. So I think what we need to do is probably break that one out separately. We can put the parking and access management into one section, and then we'd have our construction standards and road designs in another section. What I've seen that works really well is not actually adopting road designs and construction standards into your code, but you have the city council adopt them separately as a city standard by resolution. And that way, as construction standards and technologies change, those can be updated a little bit more easily.
You just reference them here.
Right.
Yeah.
Instead of it being
In the
here,
zoning
it would be
development.
with the public works code.
Well, it'll even be a standard by reference.
Right.
Okay.
And that would be similar for the sidewalk regulations, that we would have those adopted into those construction standards. We could still have elements, as was talked about today, pedestrian access, and making sure that pedestrian access is still adhered to. But as far as the construction standards for sidewalks and where to put them and those types of things along roads, that would just be part of the construction design. We have a whole bunch of sections, utilities, fire protection. That actually should be relabeled fire hydrant locations. Water supply, stormwater management, disposal of solid waste, sewage disposal. These again are general standards pertaining to new developments. In some ways, they could be part of the construction standards as well. And a lot of that this would even be referred to utilities district, what are their standards? What are their construction standards and placement locations? What are the state's requirements as far as proximity to sewer lines and water lines to where somebody has to connect? So, the rest of this, these specific use standards, I recommend we kind of leave them in this general category of specific land uses. I would recommend we add a new section, or at least reference the recreation marijuana section that we have, which is elsewhere in the code.
Satellite receiving dish needs a look.
I anticipate a whole bunch of those.
I mean, that's not gonna put them up anymore. Unless, 15 inches on the roof, but that was put in when people were doing 6-foot dishes on a concrete pad in the front yard.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I got cartoons on Saturday, that's all I care about.
We're so glad, Tom.
I am too.
Yeah.
So this is a significant undertaking and well needed. The chapter as it's written now is very hard to follow and to read through.
Right.
So I really appreciate what you're doing here.
So most of these, for instance, these specific land uses, I don't see moving those necessarily within the text very much. We'll just try to edit those in place. There will be some renumbering of sections, but it's interesting that automobile graveyards, junkyards, and automotive recyclers, it's a specific use, but right now it has its whole section to itself as the neighboring sequence goes. So some of this is just a matter of hierarchy of the document, putting things in the right place and working on the outlines.
So as you work through this, will we get a glimpse of progress as you go, so that you're not getting like a final product that we just completely can't recognize and it's impossible to follow back, and for that back track traceability.
If you're okay with this direction right now, this pretty much gets us through most of the document.
Yeah.
These organizational changes, and then I'll get into the specific regulations themselves.
Okay.
And come back through, and I can bring each of those back to you.
Yeah, just the new organization. I'd like to see that, just to get my head around that.
Organize first, edit second.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is really good.
I like this. This is good.
Okay.
I appreciate the work you're doing, man.
Yes. Yeah. Quite an
It's
undertaking.
heavy. As it is, it changed over time. It's become very cumbersome just to search through there and find,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
find the subject matter.
It grew like Topsy. Topsy never got a haircut. An old expression, you might
It
know.
must be an old expression from the 1930s or something like
I don't know.
that.
I'm gonna write that one. I'm gonna write that one down.
Can you say that again? Because I missed half of it.
Well, I made up the second half.
Oh, okay.
I knew a dog once that was a poodle, needed a haircut once. His name was Topsy. Okay, but grew like Topsy is it's from an old fairy tale.
Okay. Huh.
From an old children's story.
See if you would watch cartoons on the weekend.
That's right. If I'd had that 5-foot dish, to get all
Big
the
old dish.
Okay, where's my package? Right here. Any other business?
No other business this evening.
second.
We are adjourned.
Yes.
Button up.